You are watching TFI.
Greetings, salutations, welcome to TFI. So over the last couple of years we've seen quite the shift in the rendering world with the whole RTX Nvidia optics framework deal, in that rendering is being moved over from the CPU and onto the graphics card, and we are seeing some mental gains, like not just nerdy, tiny, or that's negligible, but I'm so nerdy, I love those kind of gains. No, like in some cases, 3-figure percentage performance boosts by rendering the same scene on the graphics card instead of the CPU. It's insane the kind of benefits this is bringing to the rendering world. So what I thought I'd do in this video is sort of it's got weaved in multiple directions since it started. Originally it was supposed to be benchmarking a single graphics card, which was the RTX2060 KO from EVGA, which is the one with the secret 2080 chip. But then I thought, actually, I'll take a larger sample set of GPUs. What I'll do is benchmark test 5 or 6 different graphics cards on 5 or 6 different rendering engines that all utilize GPU rendering or GPU ray tracing, and see where each of these cards falls. So if you're thinking about getting into GPU ray tracing, or if you're thinking of buying a graphics card to put in a system to do rendering on the graphics card, what kind of performance can you expect to get based on which card you go for, and what's the delta between each card? So that's what I thought I'll do. The graphics cards range from Pascal, which is previous generation, through to this generation, which is currently Turing, which is a good sample set because you'll see graphics cards with and without RT cores. And then the rendering engines were ranging from the likes of Autodesk Vred Professional through to Keyshot, through to 3D Studio Max Arnold, Thea, and Vray. So it's a good sample set. Some of them are can benchmarks, some of them are real world scenes. So with that being said, let's take a look at what we've got to play with. Right, lad, let's take a look at all the graphics cards that we'll be testing on the rendering engines. The first card made is the MSI GTX 1070 from the Pascal generation. This is one architecture old. It's widely regarded as being a decent all-rounder. It's very common, and it's still accessible on the second-hand market. I'm not expecting it to set the world on fire. It was mid-range. It's not super great. It was mid-tier. But I've got one kicking about, and I thought, given that this is a decent entry point that some people might find themselves landing on, it's worth putting this in here just out of pure curiosity to see how this performs in GPU ray tracing workflows. Second graphics card is the Nvidia Quadro P5000. This one is at the absolute top of the stack in professional workstation graphics, but it is Pascal generation. There was the P5000 and the P6000, but this one is high end, mate. You can still buy it today, you can still put it in a workstation, and if the market material is anything to believe, this one will chew through and demolish and annihilate any GPU task you throw at it with ease. So on market material alone, mate, this one should carry itself forward. The third card is the Mobile Quadro RTX3000, contained within a Dell Precision 7540 mobile workstation. The RTX 3000 is the TU106 chip. It is RTX. It does have RT Intensa core, so I do expect this one to perform quite well. Fourth card is the EVGA RTX2060 KO Ultra, and this is the reason that this video existed. Linked in the description is a video from Gamers Nexus. Now, to cut a very long 21-minute and an 11-second story short, I can't possibly condense all of the details into this or even paraphrase it, but Gamers Nexus got a hold of this card, opened it up, and found out that it didn't have an RTX 2060 chip in it. It had an RTX 2080 chip in it, but it obviously failed validation, being sold onto EVGA, and it gamed like an RTX 2060, but in certain CAD applications and professional workflows, it performed much better than an RTX 2060, up to 47% better in some cases. It was inconclusive whether it was better at GPU rendering tasks. It did show some signs of being better, but it was inconclusive, so I thought I'll buy one myself, put it through these GPU ray tracing workflows. It is RTX, it does have RT Intensa cores, and it is a TU104 chip, so we'll see how this performs in relation to the next card, which is the RTX 2080 Ti. So if the previous card, the 2060, is in fact a 2080, then it should fall pretty close to the 2080 Ti in some of the benchmark tests. So yeah, the RTX 2080 Ti is at the top of the stack in consumer cards. So we're going to be testing that one, and then the final array or the final configuration isn't a different card. It's two RTX 2080 Ti's in SLI, and this is to show do the rendering engines actually scale with SLI? If you've got the resource to buy 2 cards, are you going to realize the benefit of having 2 times the graphical power? Whereas in some workflows you don't actually realize that kind of a benefit, but are you going to in these rendering workflows? So those are the graphics cards, mate. Let's put them to work and see how they did. And this is the first image that we rendered on the GPU for the benchmark tests. It's a still frame image done in Autodesk Vred Professional 2021. Still frame rendered to 1920 by 1080 resolution, full global illumination, rendered out to an Adobe PSD file using HDRI lighting with depth of field effects, adding complexity to the image with 512 samples of anti-aliasing, the BMW scene. And here are the results. Quite clearly, we have a winner, which is, it wasn't really a surprise. It was the RTX 2080 Ti in SLI, which finished the render in 4.25 minutes, followed by the single RTX 2080 Ti, which took 7.6 minutes, not quite half the time for half the cards, but it was close enough, showing pretty good scaling for resource in Autodesk Vred Professional. Third was the RTX 2060 Ultra, finishing the render in 12.9 minutes. Now this was quite interesting because if that RTX 2060 really was performing like a 2080, I would have expected that time to be much closer to 7.6 minutes than it actually was. There is a difference between a 2080 and a 2080 Ti, clearly, but it's not the difference between 7.6 and 12.9 minutes. I would expect 12.9 minutes to be where a regular 2060 would fall. Unfortunately, I'm not a snowflake. I don't get sent cards from vendors for any purpose, unfortunately, so I don't have a 2060 or a regular 2080 to compare it with, but that would be where I would have expected a regular 2060 to fall, suggesting that this card is not performing like a 2080 in GPU ray tracing and rendering. The mobile Quadro RTX 3000 finished the test in 13 minutes exact, which is quite telling because that is the TU106 chip, which is loosely based on the 2060, suggesting that given that it is the same time as the RTX 2060 Ultra, that does seem to again corroborate the fact that the RTX 2060 Ultra is performing like a 2060. And then we've got the Quadro P5000 lagging way behind, bless it, and finishing the render in 33.25 minutes. All that really goes to show is that Vred is really taking advantage, and it's designed to take a hold of the RT and tensor cores on current Turing architecture and then be accelerated from that. Anything that doesn't have those is just going to lag way behind. So 33.25 minutes is just, it's not going to be worthwhile. I mean, you can spend £300 or $300 on an RTX 2060 Ultra, and you've got your render time finishing in less than half the time that it would do on a graphics card of the Quadro P5000, which is thousands and thousands of dollars. And then way behind is the MSI GTX 1070, finishing in 39.8 minutes, but that's not really a surprise. That's not any criticism on that card. That's just in there really for reference purposes. So that's Autodesk Vred Professional, the first render test. And this next test is another Autodesk Vred Professional scene. It's another still frame GPU ray tracing scene done to 1080 by 1080. This was actually going to be 4K, but this is the one I had to tone down because it was taking hours on the slower card. So it does seem a bit strange. I've got 2 Vred tests in here, but like I said, this one was going to be 4K, but 1080 by 1080 rendering out to an Adobe PSD file. And then here's the results. So pretty much exactly the same as the first test. We've got the 2 RTX 2080 Ti's finishing in 3.4 minutes. The single RTX 2080 Ti finishing in 6.3 minutes, almost the exact same kind of scaling. And then the RTX 2060 finishing in 10.9 minutes. It's almost a carbon copy of the first test. The mobile Quadro 11 minutes, and then the Quadro P5000 lagging way behind 22.6, and then the GTX 1070 27.4 minutes. It's a carbon copy, showing that Vred's pretty consistent with the rendering times, but it's also giving you a good indication that if you're going for GPU ray tracing with Autodesk Vred, you absolutely really need to have a current generation RTX card, or you're basically just throwing your time and money down the toilet. And the next test is a publicly available canned benchmark, Chaos Group Vray benchmark. This one is sort of flip reversed. The higher the better in this one. It's done in empaths, which I guess we can just call them points. But this one follows a very similar trend to the last couple of tests. The higher end, but at the lower end, some interesting things happen. So, as per the previous tests, the RTX 2080 Ti in SLI storms ahead with 701 empaths. then swiftly followed behind by the RTX 2080 Ti single card with 355, almost perfect scaling yet again, which is good, showing that Chaos Group's Vray does scale very well with SLI. In third place is the RTX 2060 KO Ultra with 204 empaths, and then followed by the mobile Quadro RTX 3000 with 191. Again, showing that, in my opinion, the RTX 2060 is performing like a 2060. So the one with the 2080 chip is still just performing like a 2060 in these GPU ray tracing workflows. So it's just a bit unfortunate. There's no denying and no doubting that it is performing like a 2080 in some CAD applications. That was well benchmarked, that was well validated, but it just turns out that in these tests, it just isn't. The mobile Quadro RTX 3000 is performing almost identical to it. MSI GTX 1070, which I was very surprised with, 176 points, which isn't even that far behind the RTX 3000. I was not expecting that. And I was certainly not expecting the Quadro P5000 to be so weak at this test, only 134 empaths. I had to perform that test several times to validate this. So based on these scores, I don't believe, I haven't looked into it, it's not easy information to find, but it doesn't look like Vray at the moment is utilizing Nvidia optics framework and the RTX technology. This is just entirely CUDA based. If it was based on RTX, I think we'd see a bigger delta between the likes of the RTX 3000 and the MSI GTX 1070. So yeah, just looks like CUDA brute force GPU rendering, but yeah, the results still to be expected, but I did expect to see the Quadro P5000 be much further ahead than it was, but still interesting nonetheless, and that's the point of these tests, isn't it? Next up is a test that I'm sure a lot of people will be interested to see. It's Keyshot 9 from Luxian. It's a 4K render, still frame GPU ray tracing, the camera benchmark. Everyone can do this, it's part of the sample scenes. This one is a 2-minute render, counting how many samples were created over the duration of 2 minutes, rendered out of a PSD file at 3840 by 2659 resolution, and here's the results. Pretty consistent, mate. Still, it's nothing of any great surprise. Consistent with the previous ones. This is done in samples, as per the Vray benchmark, the higher the better. 2080 Ti's and SLIs storming ahead, 3009 samples. With the single 2080 Ti following behind with 1580. Again, almost perfect scaling in Keyshot, showing that the developers have done a really good job there with scaling in SLI. In third place, the RTX 2060 KO Ultra, very, very closely, followed by the mobile Quadro RTX 3000 with 874 points, yet again corroborating the fact that I do believe the 2060 is just performing like a 2060. And then bolstering up the rear is the Quadro P5000 with 378 samples and the 1070 with 329 samples, suggesting that Keyshot 9 is based on RTX and the optics framework due to the delta between the RTX 3000 and the Quadro P5000, lagging that far behind as they are. So no big surprises with this test, pretty consistent with all the others. And that's the Keyshot 9 4K still frame GPU ray tracing benchmark test. And the next test is the Thea Benchmark GPU ray tracing publicly available benchmark test that you can download yourself and install, version 2.2.00, build 1871. And here's the results. Yet again, pretty consistent with all the others, which is good. It's good to know that the scores are all in line with each other. Way ahead at front is the two RTX 2080 Ti's and SLI. This graph, obviously, the higher the better. This is all in points. 19,190 points for the SLI 2080 Ti's. Second place, single RTX 2080 Ti, 9,530 points. Third place was the EVGA RTX 2060 KO Ultra with 5,287 points. Mobile Quadro RTX 3000, surprise, surprise, almost identical with 5,236 points. And then in fifth place, surprisingly, was the GTX 1070 with the Quadro P5000 in last with 3,775 points. Now clearly Thea Benchmark here is not using RTX in the optics framework. This is just a CUDA GPU rendering test due to the close proximity between the RTX cards and the Pascal cards. But I was very surprised to see the Quadro at the back in this test, as well as being at the back in other tests. That's not great. That's not great for professional graphics, because the 1070 is a mid-tier, very cheap gaming card, and the Quadro P5000 is marketed as being supposedly excellent at these professional workflows, and you pay for that. I know us professionals, we pay for the professional support, the driver support, but we need the performance to back it up, and that's not what we're getting here very clearly. So there's some explaining to do here on some level. This is not good from the Quadro P5000, but it is what it is. It's there. That's what the benchmark test's for, and that's the Thea Benchmark. And now the final test is Autodesk 3ds Max 2021 Arnold GPU rendering out to a 4K still frame, 3840 by 2160, and this is a sample scene provided by Autodesk. And here is the result. And this is where things started to get very, very unusual. And I'm not sure if it's because Arnold isn't quite perfected yet and there's still some work to do, but I wasn't seeing results consistent with the rest of the renderers. In front, as per normal, was the two 2080 Ti's and SLI finishing the render in 3.6 minutes, but the single 2080 Ti finished it in 4.3 minutes, which was certainly not perfect scaling. That was only, in fact, it was less than a minute behind, which was very, very unexpected. In third place was the 2060 KO Ultra, finishing it in 6.8 minutes. The mobile Quadro RTX 3000 finished it in 8.2 minutes, and then the P5000 and the 2070 almost identical at 12.2 minutes. So Arnold didn't seem polished, if I'm honest, because as much as that's what I got for this test, I've got a bit of an outtake here because there was a final test which included volumetric lighting, some depth of field, and some special effects, and I got results that I just couldn't explain, and I spent about 3 days on this before I had to give it up because I couldn't explain what the hell was going on. Because in this test, the two 2080 Ti's and SLI on Arnold render GPU finished the test in 22 minutes, but then the RTX 2060 finished it in 18 minutes. That doesn't make any sense to me. I ran the test over and over and over again, and it consistently finished in 22 minutes on the SLI system. I couldn't make any sense of it. And then I ran the test on the mobile Quadro RTX 3000, and it took over an hour to finish. Over an hour. I was well confused. Again, I ran it again, took an hour, so confused. I then took one of the 2080 Ti's out of the system thinking it might have been a bug with SLI, but no, it finished it again in around 20 minutes-ish. So the 2080 Ti was slower than the 2060 in this test, and then the RTX 3000 took an hour, but then the 1070 took 34 minutes. It was all over the place. Couldn't make any sense of it. I had to put it down to possibly the scene being slightly dodgy or Arnold being slightly dodgy. I don't know. But either way, I had to write off this test because it didn't make any sense. But just FYI, if you are going for Arnold as your ray tracing engine of choice, just be aware that there might be some strange results at the moment, but I'm sure that Autodesk will iron those out in the coming months. There you go, mate. Those are the tests, those are the scores, those are the results. So it was good to confirm, really. It was good to confirm that everything was consistent and fell in line with what my expectations were, and also that if you decide, I fancy getting the Pascal card from the older generation because, you know, I might be able to get a cheap 1080 perhaps, which is generally regarded as being a powerful card. That should be really powerful for rendering workflows. Yeah, not really, because a lot of these rendering engines do utilize RT cores with RTX, and they will use that. So going for something like a mid-range RTX 2060 is going to yield massively better results than going for even something like a multi-$1,000 professional Quadro P5000. It's mental that just seeing those results come in from that RTX 2060 over the Quadro P5000. So tests for that alone were worthwhile. So hopefully that was useful. Hopefully you got something from this. What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to swap out the recommended graphics card from my Workstation Slayer build and put in this RTX 2060 into that because it's a good all-rounder. It's lacking a little bit on VRAM. It has 6 gig, which is more than enough for the likes of Autodesk Inventor for Fusion 360 for most 3D CAD applications. If you're doing rendering up to, say, I don't know, you're bringing in 8K HDRIs and you're doing GPU ray tracing, you're using deep learning denoisers, all that kind of stuff, you're going to struggle with 6 gig of VRAM, but you're probably not going to be buying a cheap workstation on a sort of less than $1,000 budget if you're doing that kind of work. But this graphics card is perfect for the Workstation Slayer. If you've got no idea what that is, I'll put a link in the video description down below. The Workstation Slayer is a best that money can buy build on a budget for most 3D CAD applications that I've tried and I've tested. I've benchmarked it, and this graphics card is going to go right in there as being the recommended GPU of choice for that build. So shopping list is in the description. Those will be Amazon affiliate links. They are a massive help to my channel to keep me going. Like I said before, I don't get sent cards from any of the vendors. I've got to buy everything with my own money that I use on the channel. So any affiliate link revenue that I do get from anyone using the affiliate links is a massive, massive help, and it keeps everything that I do going. So thank you very much for that. Speaking of which, do hit the like button on the way out if you found this useful. Do subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see y'all in the next one. That's all I've got. Toodles!